Hi folks, how you doing? Welcome to Diary of a Guitar Teacher. Episode, shall we call it 1? I haven't even recorded the introduction yet. So let's call it 2. We'll make the introduction 1. So, I've got an hour. And it's Saturday. I'm teaching again on Monday. So what I would normally do today is fire up my Evernote. Now Evernote is an online note-taking app which syncs between iOS, Windows and Mac OS, and those are the 3 platforms I use. And Evernote is great because you can publish MP3s to share. You can share notebooks with pupils, and you can share MP3s, you can share PDFs, any kinds of notes really. And it has tagging and it's very powerful. So I've been using this for my own personal guitar instruction for a while, copying in PDFs from various places. And for my guitar pupils, I've got 1 notebook per pupil, which is for myself. I keep notes of each lesson just with the date of the lesson. And I also have for some pupils a shared notebook, which allows me to share material with the pupils. Things that we've gone over in the lessons I can then add into the notebook. So it's quite a useful and quite a powerful application. So that's how I do it. So what I would do today is I would look through each of my notebooks for the pupils I'm going to have on Monday. And for the first pupil, he's working through his grade 2? Or is it grade 1? I haven't made that note. Nope, doesn't say. So it's grade 1. Okay, so he's working in grade 1. Rock School, grade 1. He's worked on a tune called I See a UFO, so I don't need to go through that, I'm good with that. He's worked through Rolling in the Deep, which I've said is not very challenging for him, other than his timing. So if I have a wee look at that on the PDF, what we got, 1/8 notes, quarter notes, the odd rest here and there. Nothing particularly challenging there. All power chords. Yeah, that's straightforward enough. And he played it for me with some timing issues, so that means we can work on another tune next week. Because of timing issues, we can work on any tune really. Okay, so that's 1 pupil sorted out. And that's basically how I would go. Just looking through each of my notes to see where we were. Right, here's an interesting pupil who showed me a song called Surrounded by Heads and Bodies, which is a beautiful picking pattern. Something like that. We listened to it on YouTube during the lesson, and she's already looked up the tablature, so she knows the fretting. She's not so comfortable with the picking hand. And also the timing of that song was a little strange. So I'm going to have to take a look at that on YouTube and see what I make of it. So this is what teaching's about. I've got to learn a tune that a pupil showed me so that I can teach it to her, which is really interesting. Now I've got 30 years of experience, and so working out tunes for me isn't a great hardship. Quite often you find tablature on the internet which can help you to get in the ballpark, but I find more often than not the tablature has some inconsistencies. But it gets you started, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm not going to record myself doing all that. The other thing I've been working on, which will be useful for this particular exercise, is that I've been working on learning how to write tablature. I hadn't done that until a couple of weeks ago, and I'm starting to get the hang of it. I tabbed out The Ghost of Tom Joad for one of my pupils, and it worked out pretty well. I'm looking at 3 different applications. One of them is Guitar Pro, for which I am now using the trial version, and it's pretty good. Not terribly intuitive, but very powerful. The other 2 I'm looking at are free. One of them's called Muse Score, which my daughter showed me. It's free, a kind of open source thing, and the advantage there is that my daughter can show me how to work it, because she writes her own notation for her French horn and for her ukulele, and it did seem more intuitive than Guitar Pro. And the other one I looked at was called Guitar Tab, also free, and to be honest I struggled with that. So I think for now I will try Muse Score, see how I get on, and perhaps think about Guitar Pro if I find that Muse Score doesn't have all the features I'm looking for. So that's going to be my day. This is a short little episode just to get the ball rolling. I'll record my introduction once I get my Sony camera set up. But this is really just a diary. I thought this would be useful. I'll talk more about that in the intro, okay? We'll just make this the episode 2. The first real episode of the kind of thing you're going to be getting. Let me just show you my notebook here. I keep this on my desk, and I go through. In fact, let me talk a bit first of all about Brian Sutton. You're going to hear a lot about Brian Sutton. He is my tutor over at artistworks.com. Now, this is not an advert for Artistworks by any stretch, but it's a really useful platform for me. Brian Sutton's one of my picking heroes, one of my musical heroes. His tone, his timing, his taste, the 3 T's, they are all exquisite. But he's also a really good tutor, and so I take lessons from him over video. I will submit videos from his Bluegrass Guitar School syllabus, and then he will send me feedback. So as I go through that, I make notes, and I had a really good feedback video from him this morning when I got up. I'm working on 3 shapes that Brian uses, which are, it's basically the CAGED system. So C, A, G, E and D. 3 sort of major chords that are used in all Western music, but they're useful particularly in that order for guitar because of the shapes. Let me show you. So that would be a short F chord, right, in first position. That's the F, the cowboy version of the F chord that most acoustic guitar players learn last, or perhaps second last. The last one's possibly B minor. Because both of these chords are bar chords, by which I mean you're covering a fret with one finger and squeezing the fingerboard with your thumb with even pressure. So the F chord that's the short version. That's got a little bar over the first and second strings. So it's 1, 1, 2, 3. That is a short version of an E chord barred at the first fret. So that's your regular E. Move it up to the first fret, and there's your bar. Now you have to play obviously the E chord you would normally play with fingers 1, 2 and 3. To do the bar chords you're going to play with 2, 3 and 4 to give you the one for barring. Okay? Now if you take this short F, it's movable up the neck. Okay? All the chords, the cowboy chords, you can do this with. Some of them it's easier to do with than others. Let's look at D. There's your regular D, just on the top 3 strings, okay? Movable. It's movable because you're not playing any open strings. Now if you were to play that chord with a bar across the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings, and then play your D chord, just the regular shape, but barring 1, 2, 3 with the index finger, that's your D chord, movable, yeah? Now, if you take your ring finger and you place it on the 4th fret of the 4th string, you can play a bigger D chord with more notes. If you then place your pinky on the 5th fret of the 5th string, quite a stretch, you've got an even more full D chord. And this is your root note, that's the D. And you always want to play your D, or your lowest note, as the root. And that's called a root position chord. Now does that shape seem familiar? If you're looking at the audio, if you're listening to the audio, you won't be able to see the shape, but if you're following along, regular D-shaped chord with a short bar across strings 1, 2 and 3 at the 2nd fret, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, ring finger on the 3rd fret, the 4th fret of the 4th string, pinky 5th fret of the 5th string. It resembles a C shape, and it is a C shape. If you move that whole shape down by 2 frets, you'll see your index finger goes off the end, so it's now behind the nut, and you've got a regular C shape. So a D chord and a C chord are actually the same shape. Now why is that useful? Because if you learn a scale pattern based around the C shape, and you figure out how to move that particular shape, so that's a D. If we play the short F chord at the 3rd fret, what chord have we got? It's a G, right? Full bar chord, E shaped at the 3rd is a G, short F is a G. Now let's move up to the 7th fret and do the short D that I just showed you. Either a regular D on the top 3 strings, or the bar chord version with 1 finger, the index finger, covering strings 1, 2 and 3. That's your D shape, but it's not a D chord, is it? It's a G chord. So if you play 10, 12, 12, that's your A shape. F shape, 3rd fret, G. D shape, 7th fret, G. A shape, 10, 12, 12, G chord. Alright? So that's the shapes I'm working with. I'm also working out the scale degrees in each chord, because I feel that these are quite important, and it's something I've overlooked over the years. What do I mean by that? Well, a scale's made up of 7 notes, and then it goes back to the beginning. A major chord is made up of the 1st, the 3rd and the 5th notes of the scale. And if you begin with the root note, 1, 3, 5, you have a root position chord. So the A shape on the top 3 strings is a 1-3-5 chord. If you play the F shape on 3 strings, you've got 3-5-1. So the first note is a 3, which makes it a first inversion chord. And these different styles, different ways of playing the chords are called chord voicings. So you can choose which note you would like to start on. And take our D shape, 5-1-3. The way I'm remembering that interval is to remember the last post. So if I play that tune in my head, I know it's a 5-1-3, which is a second inversion chord. So that's just an idea of the shapes I'm working on and the sort of thing I'm taking notes for, trying to be thorough so that when I teach this I have all the information that I need and I can pass that on. And we'll leave it there. Okay? Thanks for watching and or listening. Subscribe and get more of this kind of stuff. It's going to be very sort of documentary style. The Diary of a Guitar Teacher. Talk to you next time. Bye.